The kingdom of Els was once a prosperous and peaceful land ruled by a line of just and fair kings. However, when the ecclesiast king took the throne, he brought with him a new era of darkness and cruelty. The people of Els, once content under the rule of their benevolent monarchs, now lived in constant fear of the king's wrath. The ecclesiast king was a man consumed by his love of power and his desire to inflict pain upon others. He believed that this was the only way to maintain control over his kingdom, and he ruled with an iron fist, punishing anyone who dared to challenge his authority. Under his reign, the people of Els suffered greatly. Their rights and freedom stripped away, and their lives made miserable by the constant oppression. The culture of Els was one of great beauty and sophistication. The kingdom was renowned for its art, music, and literature, and its people were well educated and cultured. However, under the ecclesiast king's rule, much of this was lost. The arts were no longer celebrated, and the people were forced to live in squalor and poverty. The politics of Els were similarly affected by the ecclesiast king's tyrannical rule. The kingdom was once a thriving center of trade and commerce, but under the king's reign, the economy suffered greatly. The people were taxed heavily, and the funds were used to finance the king's lavish lifestyle and his cruel tortures. Determined to find a way to fulfill his desires, the king turned to his dungeon, where he kept a group of demonologists locked away. He offered them freedom in exchange for their assistance in summoning a personal succubus of torment, one that would be entirely bound to his service. After weeks of dark rituals and incantations, a creature finally appeared before the king. Its beauty and otherworldly aura leaving him breathless. The creature introduced herself as Akasha, the Queen of Pain. She promised to fulfill the king's deepest desires in exchange for his obedience and devotion to her. Akasha, the Queen of Pain, was a creature of great manipulation and nuance. She was not simply a mindless demon, but rather a being with her own motivations and desires. Akasha was drawn to the ecclesiast king not just because of his power, but also because of his darkness and his need for pain. She was intrigued by the complexity of his psyche and was determined to use him to further her own goals. The king eagerly agreed to her terms, and Akasha began to visit upon him the most exquisite torments. Her methods were clever and unconventional, and the king found himself completely at her mercy. He became obsessed, spending every spare moment with her, indulging in the painful pleasures that only she could bring. The king is consumed by his obsession with Akasha, unable to think of anything else. He is drawn to her not just because of the pain she inflicts upon him but also because of the emotional connection he feels towards her. She was a master of seduction and manipulation, drawing the king deeper into her dark embrace with every passing day. Her motivations were unclear, but it was clear that she relished in the king's suffering and was driven by a deep hunger for suffering itself. As time passed, the king's neglect of his duties as a ruler began to take its toll on the kingdom. The people grew restless, and whispers of rebellion spread throughout the land. The king, blinded by his obsession with Akasha, failed to notice the growing unrest. The king's obsession with succubus grew more dangerous and all-consuming, blinding him to the needs of his people and the impending rebellion. One fateful day, the kingdom erupted into chaos. The people rose up against the king, demanding that he be held accountable for his neglect and cruelty. The king, realizing his mistake too late, retreated to his chambers, hoping that Akasha would protect him from the angry mob. But it was not meant to be. Akasha's true nature was slowly revealed, and it became clear that she was not bound by any sense of loyalty or morality. The people broke down the door to the king's chamber, dragging him out and hurling him from the Tower of Invocations. As he fell to his death, Akasha was unleashed from her servitude, freed to visit her sufferings on anyone she deigned to notice. The aftermath of the king's death is a time of great upheaval in the kingdom of Els. The people struggle to find a new ruler, and the land is plunged into a period of chaos and uncertainty. Akasha's actions only serve to exacerbate the situation, and many fear that the kingdom may never recover. The once mighty kingdom of Els was thrown into disarray, as the people struggle to find a new ruler to lead them. However, there is a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. As the people of Els begin to rebuild their shattered world, they begin to rediscover the beauty and sophistication that was once so integral to their culture. The arts are once again celebrated, and the people begin to reconnect with each other, and with their own humanity. Greatest weapon against tyranny and oppression is the indomitable spirit of humanity itself. For this time Akasha, now free to roam the land, visited her torments upon anyone who crossed her path, reveling in the pain and suffering she inflicted. The story of Akasha, the Queen of Pain, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of giving in to our darkest desires without considering the consequences. The ecclesiast king's obsession with forbidden pain ultimately led to his downfall, and the chaos that ensued in the kingdom. The lesson from this story is to always consider the potential outcomes of our actions before acting upon them. Our choices have consequences, and it is up to us to exercise restraint and act with responsibility.